Vice-Chancellor, honoured guests and students. This is a bit formidable for me, but here goes. I'm also going to repeat quite a lot, but in a less grand way, which you've just heard from Nikki. I'm extremely proud to be given the honorary doctorate of music. Despite music having been such an important part of my life, and despite having played the piano since I was a child, I haven't even taken grade 1. So this is my first ever academic musical award. Thank you. Let me tell you a little about what happened to me. I went to Oxford to read medicine. I was going to be a world-famous brain surgeon. This was a bad move, because after only a few weeks in anatomy, digging out the same mutilated arm to perform even more revolting dissections, I gave up medicine altogether. This was not the life for me, nor what I expected. I loved romantic poets, and maybe that was where my future lay. But instead of Keats, it was Anglo-Saxon and Beowulf. Amazingly, Oxford allowed me to make several of these false starts: philosophy, astronomy, chemistry, until the day came when I had to take an exam. And I finally came up with geology, and what a really happy choice that was. I studied evolution and paleontology, volcanology, crystallography, glaciology, and discussed the movement of continents and the evolution of the rhinoceros horn. I had to recognize 1,000 fossils by touch behind my back, and I went on to complete a doctorate on the petrology of the death throes of a huge volcano whose deep core remains as the Kulin Mountains in the Isle of Skye. The current geological survey map still shows my rather wild conclusions. After a short time of exploration, I gave up geology. So what has this got to do with this marvelous on dit mas I'm being given? It's simple, really. It was the 1960s, after all. And so, as a logical progression, I set up an experimental electronic music studio. I bought the first computer in a private house, and with a huge mass of machinery, pulled together a beautiful system based on a 4K punched paper tape computer with no hard drive, no monitor, which cost many, many thousands of pounds, and was several 100 million times less powerful than what I use today at home. I met up with brilliant engineers, and I started, as you've heard, a company called EMS, and invented synthesizers such as the VCS3 and the Synthi 100, which was the biggest one I think ever made, and one is now, today, on eBay for £70,000. I worked with pop musicians and also with composers, as you've heard, and I did spend many years writing the libretto for Harrison Birtwhistle's opera, The Mask of Orpheus. This wonderful era came to an end, although I did teach acoustics at another university in Cambridge. Geology and electronic music are very, very similar. Both are interdisciplinary, and both are right at the forefront of contemporary thinking. Everything is left to discover. Anyone can contribute. Well, suddenly, about 5 years ago, aged 77, and out of the blue, and after decades away from music, I was commissioned to write a 40-minute electronic composition on 50 individual tracks for an amazing modern sculpture in Istanbul. This led to another change in my career. I became a composer. Over the last 5 years, I've completed about 8 full-scale works, including 2 concertos for violin and computer. And how well this last phrase rolls off my tongue. And it gives me great pleasure to say so. I'm now writing a very experimental concerto for computer and solo cello, and I hope you'll all come to its first performance, wherever it is, next year. Here is my advice. Whatever you have studied, Your career can be interesting and diverse. There are no rules. Be open to all the changes you will encounter. But if you're still undecided, take geology or music. You will never be bored. We have a little framed poster in the kitchen at home by a friend of John Cage that reads, "Think mushrooms." Maybe this sums it all up. Thank you.